All right, what's going on, everybody? Zombies here again, and today we're back with another episode of the Fighting Pit podcast. I am joined, as always, by my two co-hosts, Mullahoo and WizardBeast. How you guys doing this week?
Doing good. Excited to talk about all of the news and really excited for it, honestly. Been waiting over a year for it.
Yeah, I'm a little sickly right now, but we are. Yeah, I mean, I posted on Twitter, literally being like, "This is almost a year on the nose. Is the first official time that it feels like the culmination of this year-long story arc that various people around the world have been following with us and been following the podcast with. Like, it's coming to a close essentially. Like, that feels really cool and feels really kind of cathartic to be at least sniffing finally officially in real words that this coin exchange again. Nope, we still haven't truly seen all the details, but it's whether or not it fails or flops or survives or changes the game or it's a golden age or whatever. It's here, it's coming. So I'm ready for it.
Yeah, very exciting. So we're gonna dive right on into it. News, talk a little bit about the meta. And then we're going to close up talking about another game that I think all three of us have been playing quite a lot and have definitely been drawing some parallels and lessons for Mercenaries from. So that's kind of going to be our structure this week. Before we get into it, if you enjoyed the show, helps us a ton. If you like, subscribe, comment, all that good social media stuff, really helps support us and shows us, that you're enjoying what we do here. So, starting off, we have a patch preview this week. So if you've been following on Twitter for a while now, you have probably heard that they've been hyping up this 0.6 patch quite a lot. There've been a bunch of different rumors, but I mean, Alkali, a bunch of the different devs, they've all been saying hey, 0.6 is going to be a banger. We're doing more than we normally do for these type of patches. And so I think it was yesterday. Yeah, yesterday they actually dropped a patch preview, which is not something they typically do. Normally they wait till a day before or the day of and then just give us the notes and standard stuff there. But now this time, and actually it was a little bit leaked before, not the preview itself, but we're pretty much guaranteed that November 1st, and this announcement kind of confirmed it, is going to be a big announcement day for Hearthstone, announcing the new expansion, all this other new stuff, and it is almost certain from what I've seen that we're going to get the 0.6 patch on the same day. So Tuesday next week, really, really close. But yeah, so they've been hyping this up quite a bit. There've been a bunch of rumors going around and whatnot. If before we get into actually what they said here in the official thing, covering the rumor stuff a little bit, it sounds like, so if you haven't heard, there is a very, very good chance that Death Knights are being added as a class to Hearthstone in the final expansion of this year for regular Hearthstone. So that's pretty cool. I've always liked Death Knights, and I think it's going to be neat to see a new class added. It's going to be kind of weird because it's going to be the 11th class, and that is a weird UI number, so don't be surprised if we see a 12th class within a year following this, because there's no shot they want to keep it on 11. 9 to 10 worked for UI stuff. 11's weird. 11's it doesn't divide up nice and evenly. You can't do it into threes 9. It's just kind of a weird number for UI, so don't be surprised if we get Monk or the new dragon one from because they're doing the new WoW expansion with that. But basically that's the big rumor that's almost all but confirmed, and I imagine the expansion reveal will probably confirm that further. Also, we are going to probably get a new card that day as well, because that the 0.6 is usually when they implement the pre-order and the new free card they gave out. So we got Renown last time. He's going to be a tough act to follow, though, because that was one of the craziest cards I think they've ever made in the game. But so we'll be seeing that for all of our, main regular Hearthstone enjoyers. And it sounds like they're doing a special event. They're actually confirmed they're doing an event in Battlegrounds for some cosmetic stuff. I'm not a big Battlegrounds guy, so I'm not super versed, but they're doing something called a Battle Bash, which I guess you can play in a game and you get a chance for cosmetics. It kind of reminds me of the Heroic Tavern Brawl, where you can pay to enter, but you can get stuff. But unlike the Heroic Tavern Brawl, they're giving everyone a free entry, which is great. So even if you don't want to pay for these cosmetics, you can just, I think, just play a game of it for free, get some cool cosmetics, and they're all Halloween themed. So that's always fun. They announced officially the Hallows End event is coming to Hearthstone with this new patch. So, they do a yearly thing for Halloween, so we're going to see that. And I think they're going to be doing a return of Doom in the Tomb. So I don't know if you guys are too familiar with that, but for anyone who isn't, a few years ago, they did something cool. I think it was actually it was during the summer. It was during like the Summer Fire Festival or whatever. But Doom in the Tomb, they brought back a bunch of old, wild, rotated cards into the standard format, and they gave them to everyone for free temporarily, kind of like the core set. So they gave people all these cards. They were like, hey, Ragnaros and Sylvanas are back in standard, and have fun with these old cards. Now, there were some problems with that because, unfortunately, it created a very toxic deck that was very dominant, Evolved Shaman, and unfortunately, this was at a period of time when updates and balance changes to Hearthstone weren't quite as frequent as they are today. So they basically kind of like let the game rot for 2 months of Evolved Shaman RNG Stone. So unfortunately, because of that, I think Doom in the Tomb isn't remembered super fondly, even though the idea was great. It's just the execution wasn't perfect. Like they needed to either nerf it or change something there, because like letting standard suffer for 2 months like that, I don't think a lot of players enjoyed, because it wasn't a choice. You couldn't opt into it. You were forced to play with or play against these cards. So I'm hoping that they learn from that. But because of the Death Knight stuff, I think that they are going to be bringing back the original Frozen Throne Death Knights into standard for a while. That's just speculation, but
a little promo, yeah.
I would love that.
Right.
I mean, those were some of my favorite cards, like when they first had like the big class changes and everything.
I think it was their biggest expansion ever was, I think, Frozen Throne. I think I'd have to double check the data, but like I'm pretty sure looking at like all the Hearthstone expansions over time, I think Frozen Throne was the biggest one ever, and those Death Knights are very loved. The one thing I'm curious about, if they do it, I feel like they may have to actually tweak some of those Death Knights to be a bit better, because I think a lot of them would not see play in.
They're like 9 and 10 mana.
They're too slow. Yeah, like there are a few that are probably good enough, like Deathstalker Rexar, my personal favorite of the Death Knights. Like he's probably fine, but like some of the slower ones, like Garrosh and Jaina and Uther, those cards are probably a bit too slow for the pacing of standard now. So I'm curious if we're going to see them maybe, knock a mana cost or 2 off. Like I'm sure Jaina would be a lot better of a card at 8 mana rather than 9, so you could weave in the hero power, and there's a whole list and whatnot. We're not gonna focus on that too much because we're obviously not a constructed focused show. But I did want to mention that because they've been hyping it up a bunch. It sounds like these are all plausible things that have a decent chance of happening. So I want people to be aware of that. And I think it'll be definitely a fun time to maybe pop in for a little bit of constructed. And hopefully it just freshens things up, because right now, at least as far as regular Hearthstone goes, like I'm not feeling it. I'm and that's putting it very mildly. Like I am not feeling it. I do a little bit of standard once every 3 days so I can finish my quests to save gold for more Merc stuff and more expansion stuff. But I do not like the state of standard, and I don't think Wild's terrible, but like I've played enough of the current meta that like I want new things, fresh things, It's just that time, it's that time in the expansion cycle where, we're a month away from the new expansion, and they've had nerfs and buffs and whatnot, but like the meta is pretty settled, and I think it'll be nice to see new, exciting stuff. So looking forward to that. Again, all this stuff is going to be announced on November 1st, and it's almost certain that is coming the same day. This is going to be 1 p.m. EST on Tuesday, the 1st. So keep an eye out for that. Now, in terms of Mercenaries, let's get to the meat of it here. In terms of speculation, I would be very, very surprised if we did not get a Mercenaries event. It has been, I think, 2 months without an event. And if we look back to their average, they've averaged roughly one every 2 months over the last year of the game. given that Chi started a little bit later in February. They've come out to about one event every 2 months because it's been like a year and we've had, I think, 6 events.
Well, the events even mostly started in like 2022 for a lot of them, right? So
yeah, that's why it
was close to a
averages.
month apart.
So
yeah.
some were like a month apart, then others were like there was a month gap in between. But overall, 6 events over 12 months, even though they didn't really start till I think January or February. But I would be very, very surprised if they don't lean into, hey, it's been a while. Hey, we're doing all this stuff for Halloween and these special events. Like, they're going to give us a Mercs event. Like, I would be shocked if they don't.
I would love like a Headless Horseman.
Yes. Yes.
That would be so cool.
That would be
I remember
sick.
doing that. Wow.
It would be so cool. And like, they already have the art for it and whatnot. Like, I think that would be very sick. And I think Mercenaries lends itself very well to that type of thing. We've talked about it a bunch before, but events are honestly, I think, the biggest thing that bring new people and bring returning players back into the mode. At least from what I've seen as a creator, I don't think there's anything else. I mean, maybe some of the changes they've done, like I know the task change brought a lot of people back, but consistently what I have seen, and when I ask people, hey, what got you into the mode? It was, this event seemed cool, and that got me starting playing it, and I just really liked it from there. And then I got involved with the community, and the rest is history. So I think in a optimal world, if they could do an event a month, it would be so good for the game. It would be, I'm sure it's a lot of work, and as we've seen in the past, the events have had bugs, but they have been better with that as of recent. I think the last one we didn't have any bugs with, so that's pretty good. But yeah, I think the events are just something they should not be sleeping on. And if they can ramp it up a bit and do them a bit more consistently in terms of like a monthly event, it would do so good for the game because it gets people excited. There's new content. It's content that pretty much everyone can at least get the base mercenary for. And then it also is an incentive for established players or even new players who want to grow their collection to try and take on these challenges to get the cool portraits. So love the events. Really hope we get one. And I would be very surprised if they didn't do an event with this, because one of the things we got in this patch preview is talking about a task rework and the Renown system. And it just seems so free to be like, hey, we're doing this huge rework to the mode. Also, at the same time, here's an event to check out. Like, it would be such a misplay not to do that.
So, honestly, what I can already foresee though is, especially like in the patch notes, they showed us a little screenshot of theoretically what the new campfire is going to look like with these Renown systems and stuff, which gives us some potentially saddening insight as well into how frequently you'll be able to turn in these extra excess coins. But if the campfire is now the new place where you can get these offers for the excess coins exchange, and a whole event takes up one of those 6 slots, I feel like that might actually trigger people.
Yeah, so
normally the event takes the place of Toki.
Yeah, it's just Toki slot, although I could see people being upset about that because they don't understand.
Because then you want to get rid of Toki and hope to.
But the Toki spot is never.
Okay. No, that's good.
It's never been replaceable. So even when you don't have a Toki mission, you don't get another task. You don't get another. Now, I think visually, people could get upset about that because they could assume that is how it works. So I think there's an angle to that.
No, that's okay. That's okay. No, I honestly, I was just thinking of the fact that it's like, because when you look at this screenshot, again, and I'm sure we'll link the patch notes in that sense, like just here alone, there's 6 spots, right? And only 2 of those have excess coins available to cash in, right? And so like chopping out one of 6 could theoretically anger a lot of people when you're really just going there for excess coins. But so it just makes the excess coins feature, I guess, a little bit less ideal, I suppose. But
yeah, so I've got it up on screen now so people can see it.
We don't notice though, which is new, is it looks like there's a toggle for pages maybe at the top.
There is.
Yeah.
So let's.
It looks like a task, like a party thing on the right.
They actually explain that. So here, I'm gonna just quickly read through it, and then we can kind of break down some thoughts and all that stuff. So, starting in patch 24.6, we'll be updating our task system. Tasks have been an important part of Mercenaries since the mode first launched. We like that tasks are a way for players to get free coins, packs, and help grow their collection, strengthen their mercs as they play. We've improved the task system a couple of times since launch, making it much easier for players to get new tasks and keep the task chain rolling. This is true. Starting in patch 24.6, we're opening them up even more. All task chains will be available at all times. And they bolded
cry
that
from a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, imagine telling people at launch this.
Yeah.
Honestly,
You can only get 4 tasks a day. It was 1 per character, but now it's whole task lines in every task. Like, that is such a big
They could have
change.
salvaged the launch so much better if they announced this anytime, even remotely after launch. But
I mean, they just started off as like squeezing as possible, and slowly have just like relinquished the
squeeze, yeah,
the, tight grip.
I think it's because they knew how long it was going to take to actually implement this stuff. Because, like we've said before, the mode wasn't ready. It wasn't ready. All right, but there's more. So, task progress will be determined by the mercs actively in your party at that time. That means you can choose exactly which task chains you want to work on and when, and progress up to 6 task chains at once. So this is already a huge upgrade, because before you could do 4 at a time. Now you can do 6 at a time. And I think the biggest thing here, especially for new and returning players, is it felt bad when you had to rely on the RNG of, did I get the merc I wanted in my daily to go through their task chain? Especially when you get one of the launch mercs that was like harder to complete the task chain for. It was just kind of a feel bads moment. Like, if you wanted to level up Elise, but you didn't get her as one of your 4, you either had to just get rid of it or complete that one to have another chance at Elise. Now, if you have Elise, you just throw her in your party and you're good to go. So that's a huge upgrade. And then they mentioned the Renown system. So this is that mystery resource we've been talking about. In patch 24.6, we're also introducing a new Renown system that will let players exchange excess coins for coins of mercs they own but haven't yet maxed. Your excess coins can be converted to Renown at any time and then exchanged at the campfire. With tasks now being available at all times, the campfire daily reset will instead feature offers to exchange Renown for coins for mercs that you do not have maxed. The daily reset will also include some miscellaneous general mercs tasks not tied to any current task chain, mixed in with those Renown exchange offers. Keep an eye out for the patch notes soon, more info about Renown and the new task updates. So we have the thing on screen here. This is what we've been analyzing. So we have those 2 tabs, like WizardBeast mentioned. I'm assuming that right tab is now going to be your task tab, so you can go over there and check your tasks for your characters in your party. Makes a lot of sense, and honestly, I really like that they added a tab to this. My biggest issue is that if you're going to add a new tab, they should have added 2 new tabs. There should have been 1 tab for these new daily things, which, by the way, I think are great and a very welcome addition to the game. They give basically a challenge like, hey, go do this bounty with Gromash, and you'll get some Cariel coins or coins for Cariel and someone else. That's awesome. The game needed this.
That's kind of an like, in a way, presumably, if those are only going to pop up for characters you don't have maxed.
No, those are. I think those can be for any character, but I'm not positive on
anything,
that. I think
that would be a disaster, right? If you could get them for maxed characters, that would suck.
Yeah. Well, I think the idea is it's trying to give you coins for different characters, but it might factor that in. We really don't know. Like,
because then it would be like another form of excess. Because it's like an additional
I think it is
boost of
supposed
coins
to be
in that way.
Yeah, because I think it's supposed to be like that's the new Renown generator because they can't have. Say you blow through all of your Renown and you have all your tasks done. How would you get more?
Oh, okay. So you think those are giving you Renown by doing those visits?
Yeah, I think it's just a new way of gaining coins.
Something like it.
I don't think it's designed around the people who are who are near the end of a collection or whatever. I think this is more a general application where it's like, hey, it's a daily. You don't really miss out if you don't do this, especially if it's for a character
extra
you don't want. But the Cariel one here mentions complete Plague Maw, the Rotting Bounty, and Barons. Party includes Gromash. So I'm guessing you probably get Grom and Cariel coins for this. We don't see the rewards, so we don't really know yet. But I think one big thing this helps with is it gives us a reason to do old content, old bounties that we probably would never have a reason to go back to. And that's a pretty big win. I think that is a good thing for the game. We've seen players react positively to this when seeing stuff like this for the challenges and the events. So having this as a daily, I think is good. And I think it helps guide new players to basically for something to do rather than just going to complete your tasks. Well, now I have, a reason to go to this area, and maybe they don't have that area unlocked, so they have to fight some other bounties. I think it's just something that adds a better structure to the gameplay loop. So I think overall, it's a net positive for the game.
Mm-hmm.
But the big issue is the tabs, and this is what I kind of have a problem with, and this talks about our trade system. So we speculated a lot about the extra coin stuff, and obviously in a perfect world, geared towards our hardcore players here, it would be so much better if you could just say, hey, I have however many coins, let me change it into Renown, and then let that Renown give me a bunch of coins for just mercs I don't have maxed. Like, yeah, even if it was totally random, as long as it wasn't hitting maxed out mercenaries, I think that would have been like pretty much a perfect system.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is...
perfect for the player.
Yeah, perfect for the player. And the problem is that's not perfect for the company. And as we kind of guessed and speculated, there is a daily limit to this, it seems. So this is kind of them saying, hey, we know some of you have hundreds of thousands of these fucking coins lying around. We don't want you to be able to max out new mercs the day they come out by just pumping your excess stuff. So this is kind of their answer to that. And I think in general, the trade system actually isn't a terrible system. I think the problem with it, to me, as we can see here in this image, so your main campfire thing, you have your story quest, you have your Toki/event, those are your top two. Then you have your visitors, so there are 2 slots for those, it seems, which are the quests we just talked about.
Do 2 every time?
And then 2 trade offers, right? Now, we don't know for sure that this is going to be the structure every time, but the way they word it, it sounds like it's going to be. Now, if you've completed all the story and you get an extra slot, that actually improves this quite a bit. But typically, that's not how it's worked in Mercenaries. When you complete the story, that just is an empty slot until we get more story quests. It'd be great if they changed this, but we don't have any indication that's happening. But the problem I see with this is you basically get 2 trade offers a day. Now, we don't know the trading rate. We don't know how many coins you have to throw into Renown to get the trade here. So we really can't analyze that until we get the patch and patch notes next week. But we can see the offers here.
Guess. Yeah.
And we can guess, but like we
can speculate.
We don't know. Like it could be anything. We don't know if rarity's gonna count and do it. We really just don't know. Because like in this picture, we can see in that bottom right, they almost have 10,000 Renown. So does that mean these ones are going to cost a lot of Renown, but your coins convert like 1-to-1? Or it's really just like anybody's guess. There's not really information we can base it off of. But we can see that the trade offers here, there's an offer for Vandar for 150 Vandar coins and Guff for 125 Guff coins. Now, right away, that strikes me as odd that the Legendary has more coins, because traditionally in Mercenaries, they usually are offering you like lesser coins for the Legendary because they're sometimes harder to get. But I'm guessing
that's why they are doing it, because you might have more rare. It's more common to get rare coins than the Legendary, so maybe they're trying to make it better that way.
It could be.
In that sense.
And maybe the Legendary offer costs more Renown. Again, it doesn't really say. I imagine you have to click on it to see. But the whole thing that I think rubs me the wrong way about this system is if you're going to limit it to being daily and a fixed amount of coins, and I think we even threw out this number before, like 100 or 150 a day or something when we were taking some guesses.
I remember you were saying you wanted 1,000 a day.
Yeah. And so this gets into what I think would have been better is if you're already adding a tab, add 2 tabs and make your campfire your dedicated daily quests. Give us, 4 of those instead of 2. And that way, if people don't like one, they have more to choose from. And then the other thing, just make a whole dedicated trading tab. I think if you had 5 or 6 trading offers in a day, I don't think I'd really have any complaints about this system. Like, would it be perfect? No. But would it be more than good enough, I think, to help with progression a lot? Yeah. Like, I think only assuming that is how it is, and that's what it looks like in this image, I think only having 2 a day isn't it. Because if we do the math here, right, like we can see, obviously I'm sure it'll vary, but Let's
Maybe
just do the
2,000
math
a week?
off of the numbers. So we have 150 and we have 125. So that's 275 coins a day. Let's say you trade every day for a week. It's just under 2,000 coins, 1,925. Now, that's a fair chunk of coins. That's most of the way to maxing a merc, and you also have to remember that these aren't going to be all for one merc, but you also can get the merc up pretty quickly by doing their tasks, so you really don't need, the full 2,800 or whatever it is to max a merc, given that, like, I don't remember how many coins are from tasks, but it's a lot. You get them most of the way there.
And now it's even easier to do it because you don't have to get their task anymore, too.
Exactly, so it makes it even easier to where you can farm them up. So the task change on its own, huge plus. I pretty much have no complaints about that. But in terms of the extra coin change, I think the biggest mistake here is if you were implementing a daily trading system like this, you just got to give more options. Like, make it its own tab. There's no reason it should be stuffed in here with the challenges. Give more options for people and give more daily quests for the regular things, because I think those will actually be very appreciated by the PvE folks of the mode. So those are my biggest thoughts about this. Like, it's the task thing, fantastic. The extra coin thing, I mean, I'm glad we're getting an exchange of some kind, but I think this current one leaves a lot to be desired.
Yeah, I mean, we still don't know, like you're saying, 100%. This is just like what we're seeing. There could be more to it. Maybe like there is another page, and honestly, we just can't see. Maybe there are more refills besides just the 2. I mean, that's what we're hoping.
That'd be great.
Because that'd
or
be
they
great.
could maybe roll 4 like at a maximum. Like what
or
if
maybe they roll
what
over
if the visitors
too?
could
Like,
be trade offers?
Like, what if? Yeah.
Maybe.
Also, what if when you buy a trade offer, what if it instantly replaced? So you could just keep doing it. I don't think they're doing that
Until you have,
because they said
the way
daily.
the way it says it daily reset, which they did in the previous post say it would be like a daily thing.
Yeah, they alluded to it before, so I'm not really that surprised. I just think 2 is too little.
Because if, like you were saying, let's just say around 2,000 coins, and you do the task, it's basically a merc a week. Basically off of maxing if you did this like daily logins, but you also did like their task line and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
but then it's all split up
coin
still
value.
in that sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's still not even a guaranteed merc a week.
At least it's always it is always unmaxed though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So like, some characters that you might be missing just 154 or whatever, like 1-2 abilities or something. Because I know I still have some characters that are like literally 1-2 abilities away. I'll get this and then boom, just have them maxed.
Yeah,
at least for me.
But the problem with those is that like when you're that close with the character, it's normally
you could just go bang
really
it out
easy
in
to
like
just
an
bump them
hour,
over, or it's already playable, or it's like if you're at 554 on your abilities or whatever, and one of your equipment, right? Because how many characters do people have where it's like everything is maxed except for their equipment? But one equipment, the good one, is maxed and like they're functionally maxed. Now you're getting excess coins that literally don't do anything, or if it's a brand new character, getting 150 coins literally does nothing. They're very far away from playable, and it's now all of a sudden that feels like another kind of form of a void, which kind of stinks. Yeah, I mean, I think just 2 is just not enough, right? Like we've seen the excess coins thing, and I think we're in agreement in saying like 300 coins randomly. Again, it's good for it gets way better when you have like a 95%, 99% max collection. So like that's good, I guess, for the people that are like striving to get there. Because then like new mercs come out, every single one of your trade offers will be.
It's good for daily players too, right? Like if you already have like, let's say maybe you're not super progressed, you've played Mercenaries a bunch at launch, but you're just coming back to the mode. And if you farmed Air Elemental like I did, you at least have, a couple thousand extra coins for at least some of the starter mercs. So I think this is good in that it can help somebody who's new and just starting to come back to it and banging out tasks. It's a nice bonus where they can log in to do their stuff during the day, like do their dailies, work on tasks, and then at the same time be like, oh, I can just use some of these useless coins to help progress a future character. Like, it's great that it's there, but
it's better than nothing.
It doesn't give enough to the long-term players.
The number, actually, I was just doing the math.
I think
it matches exactly like with the drops. Because if you did let's just say it was 2,000.
Yeah.
That's like 8,000 a month. Then that's 32,000 in between every 4 months for a drop. Then let's say that's about 16 characters technically at maxing.
Interesting.
with coins. So that would exactly line up. That would
The
like
last
perfectly
drop.
line up with the drops and everything.
I wonder if
So,
that's
like,
how they calculated it. I really
honestly,
do.
because that seems like that would fit. Because that's like, hey, if you had literally you just log in, and as long as you did like their task line 2, even if you just did like up to task 2, just to get the equipment, and maybe like
Oh yeah, if you
a
did your
couple more for
task
that.
line, you wouldn't have to log in every day to do it because
Yeah.
task lines. I don't remember how much they are, but they're a lot. I think they're
Like
over
1,000 or
I
something.
think it's over
little
1,000. Yeah.
Yeah. So literally, it's just say you do task lines in that, which then that would cut everything in half. Which that means if you just did task lines for everything and you just logged in every single day from when the mercs drop to the next drop, you would have all of those new ones maxed
Yeah. So like,
before the next drop. So
it's
that would fit in
it's
that
good
sense.
in that sense, and I do think it's nice that there's an incentive, like, and it's also smart business on their end to just have something like this to have people open up.
Second.
Well, that and this is a daily login incentive, right?
Yeah.
And games like Hearthstone and other games like this with their daily quests and whatnot, like that's a huge part of what makes them money and what increases their player base stuff, because you'll probably get people who log in to do their trade offer, and then they're like, you know what? I'll actually go bang out this quest, or I'll do some work on a task line, or I'll go play some PvP. So, I mean, it's smart in that sense, and I mean that's generally also good for the player base because maybe that results in more people playing the game more. So like, I think that's good. It's just like, it just feels like such a small number, and I think Mullahoo makes a great point in that if you're doing this on a new character, like, yeah, coins take a while to get and whatnot, but like when you're making those early upgrades, yeah, the early ones are a little bit better than the late ones, but it feels like such small incremental progress. Like you're not gonna upgrade an ability from level 2 to level 3 or 3 to 4 and feel like, oh yeah, that was like a super huge upgrade. Now this character is viable for me. Like, no, you're gonna wait till you get them all the way to level 5 most of the time. Now, I mean, maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe there are more people playing PvE and even some PvP with like lower leveled abilities, but that's my perspective. Is like it just feels so small in terms of like what 150 or 125 coins actually gets you. That it's
basically like one ability upgrade.
Yeah, like I think even if you offered like double that, it would feel notably better, where at least you're getting to upgrade like multiple skills or push one skill further. Like just one, obviously not the starter levels where it's like 50 or whatever, but just one, mid or late level for one skill or one item, and getting to do that like twice a day. I want more. I want more options than that. And plus, what if those are for two characters like you're not particularly interested in? Like, yeah, you should do it so that like you're closer to maxing and then you don't get those offers anymore. But then that feels even worse because you're like, oh man, I wish I got Valera in my offer instead of Vandar, or
Well, I mean, actually, as you say that, what made me think is that like, yeah, what we're realizing is that you're going to get these like incremental upgrades that don't actually really change your ability to play the character with these trade offers, which almost then makes it into the system that you're actually basically just incentivized to come on, click, accept trade offer, literally regardless of what it is, and just cash in your renown. Like it just doesn't matter what the merc is at this point when it's numbers this
for
small.
now, yes, yeah,
and that's actually really I didn't expect that, but that's bizarre. That certainly wasn't something that I was thinking of or wanting, because again, we want to be able to new character, cash and everything, real character now. Thank you, renown system, right? That was the dream in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean,
but this is just like your daily is click the button now.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing we will have to see though is how much renown will we get for the excess coins? Like, we still don't know about that, and also how much renown will it take for these offers? Is it going to be a direct, hey, the Vandar is 150, it's 150 renown, but how many excess coins is that? So say like people who are playing who don't have a lot of excess coins too, they might not be able to do these offers as much if they want to save them up also for the PvE, because we know this is the same one. So if it's a bad exchange rate, even for the excess coins, like some of us that might have like 100,000 or over, hey, it might not really matter. But someone who has maybe 10,000 coins or something, they're like, I kind of want to save up for the PvP, which, we'll have to see about that.
The PvE.
But the other thing, or sorry, PvE. The other thing, there is that little green button next to the renown. And I'm wondering if you can buy that with money.
Yeah, it kind
So,
of looks like a
It seems
add
like it
renown
can.
button.
it looks like the Runestone button. Now, when
Yeah.
they didn't mention buying it with money in this, I'm sure that is there at the minimum because they didn't want to add a new thing in the campfire. So I'm pretty sure whether there's a money option or not, you're going to be pressing that to exchange your extra coins. Now, I had the same thought as soon as I saw that little green button. I'm like, I know what that means. And that does give me some concerns if you can buy it with money, which, let's be honest, like, it's Blizzard. I'm not going to be
Probably.
surprised if you can buy it with money. But that also, I think, brings some concerns for the potential of endgame content if that's the case, because what if that just means that, they've talked about using this new resource, which we now know is Renown, to power up your PvE characters for the endgame. It's going to be pretty lame if there's any kind of competition in trying to progress further in the endgame. If someone can just swipe the credit card and get their mercenary like way, way more powerful for that PvE, I mean, yeah, you could probably do the same thing with extra coins, but like the fact that would even be an option would be really, really bad if they want any kind of leaderboard or competition or anything like that. If there is a viable option for this, that's going to be really, really bad for it. Now, we don't know. It's certainly possible that that's just the UI they used. It's still just extra coins. And I mean, they could say, hey, if you really want extra coins to get Renown, just buy packs, because as we all know, you get a lot of extra coins in packs. So we don't know. That's purely speculation, but I wouldn't put it past them to put in the option of, hey, if you want some Renown to do these trade offers or eventually the endgame stuff, you can just swipe the most OP card in the game, the credit card, and gets access to it. But I'm really hoping that's not the case.
Yeah. And if it was like quickly, I think in terms of like a number speculation, because I think we kind of can get close, is if let's say 1 Renown equals 1 trade offer, 1,000 extra coins to equal 1 Renown, is that too much? I would start to put that as the upper limit.
Yeah.
So I think 0 to 1,000 extra coins for one
that's
trade.
Way too much.
That's what I would start to think about. Maybe it's 500, maybe it's 1-to-1. But
I don't think it's 1
in terms of a number, that's not.
I would be shocked
crazy
if it's over 100 to 1. I really would be surprised. Like, looking at how much there is here, they have 9,861 in that thing. And also, I think it's worth noting that they're using kind of the Mercenaries coin symbol. Like, not the coins in game, but like the logo symbol. To me, that's saying that it's not going to be crazy off of what normal coins are worth. Otherwise, I don't think they'd have almost 10,000 of them in here. Obviously, this is just like a sample screenshot and a test thing or whatever. Yeah, but like it would be, I think it'd be a higher number if we've seen on some of these god accounts where they have like infinite dust. I think it would be an infinite. It would be a much higher number. It'd be like 19,000 or 90,000 or whatever if that was actually just like infinite. But we don't know. Like, for example, maybe these cost like 10 Renown and they just have a crazy amount on it. Like, you really don't know, and it's hard to figure out. But my guess is I would be shocked if it is over, 100 to 1. I think we're more likely to get 10 or 25, and maybe it scales. I think I would not be surprised if it scales where your rare extra coins give less, your epics give more, your legendaries give the most. But we still just don't really know about that.
Yeah. So you think 100 extra coins for 1 Renown is like what?
Or for whatever. Yeah, it's so hard to like think about because like at least if we knew how much the trade offers cost, we could maybe figure it out a little bit more. But we just don't.
Right? I mean, then we'd know for sure. Yeah,
I'm gonna say the trade offers are exact to Renown. That's my guess.
I mean, that'd be kind of simple, right? Like you know how much Renown it is just by looking at the amount. That kind of makes sense.
Especially with it being a very difference. It's like, hey, for the Guff one, you're going to spend 125 Renown for 125 of his coins. And the main thing in exchange rate would be the coins to Renown, not the Renown to buying the trade.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot more sense. because they don't want to make it overly complicated, right? Like, I think because that would make a lot of sense. You see the number, you know how much renown it's going to cost you. The only math you have to do is, hey, how much renown do I have from all my extra coins? But I think again, even there, I think they're going to want to keep that relatively simplistic. Like, you don't want to make a system like this overly complicated for people. I still think there's a decent chance they divide it up by rarity. Like, rares are less renown than the other ones,
like,
but
maybe like rares could be like a 1-for-1 epic 5 and maybe legendary 10, or you think, that's probably too much.
I'd probably be way too much because like you have to remember we have because I haven't counted in a while, but I'm at like 600,000 or 700,000. So like I mean, maybe the end game has some pretty big sinks, but I would never run out. And also, I'm not even presumably going to get trade offers because I'm full maxed. So, like, I'm not even going to get to interact with the system until...
Which, that's another thing also I was going to bring up saying this. So say, you know, how we see it's 2 and 2 right now. Let's say this is how it is. For you who is maxed, would you not get trade offers? And instead, would you get another 2 visitors?
I was wondering that too.
That's what I was thinking. And I was like, because if not, then, you know, that kind of sucks. But I mean,
all of that really sucks.
Yeah. I mean, all of this is technically bonus stuff from what we're getting right now. So, like, yes, all of it's good. But of course, we want to try and get the most out of it.
100%. Yeah. And I feel like it might work that way because if you think about it, at least going off of precedent, right? Like, precedent in Mercenaries for the campfire, if you complete that Toki task, if you complete your daily event task, if you complete the story task, those are still reserved for those spaces. They don't just give you more spaces by those being empty. So I'm guessing the other ones are going to function the same way. Now, I really hope that's not the case because I think it'd be great where even if you were full maxed, you had some extra dailies to do if you wanted to build up more coins to get some renown, and just I think it gives people something kind of fun to do that's different. Like, you actually have a reason to take a specific... I mean, we've been asking for this for a while, right? Like give me a reason not to play the fire team on every bounty. And I mean, yes, you could still do that with this, to be clear. I mean, you could just throw them in the bench or whatever. But I think this kind of is an incentive to give players a reason to play with some of their other characters who they might not normally use for regular farming. I think that's good. So if you're already fully maxed out, I think that they should definitely replace those slots. One nice thing is, assuming we get an event, I will have 1 or 2 trade offers for the new Merc, so that will help me get it faster. So, especially for events, this could be a pretty nice bonus, because this could actually help you maxing out a new event character very quickly, and it's usually harder to max those because you have to wait every day for the new event task, and then they're usually only on 1 bounty, and it's a 1 out of 3 chance. So if you are a maxed out player, there can be a lot of RNG with that, so it does help a bit in that sense. A bit less so when the big mercs drops happen, but for individual event drops, it's a pretty beneficial system potentially.
Yeah. I mean, I would say the main things we have to see is all of the conversion rates, between coins to renown and renown to trade offers. What the visitors actually give us, like what's the reward for it? Is it renown? Is it more coins? Is it targeting something? Like what is that?
I think it's coins, but it's not confirmed. Let me look.
Yeah, my guess is coins.
Does say
because they basically are saying it's tasks. It's a new task tasks
like
have always they've always given.
Well, they've also been packs though too.
So that would be if they gave packs for these. That would be sick.
Daily extra 2 packs.
There's no shot though. There's no way in hell they're giving us 2 packs a day. No way. If they do,
the Mercenaries has been very generous in packs. I would say though. Yeah. Out of all the modes. Would be the one.
I don't think they're gonna think about the value though. Like, even if you're not like a Mercs player, that's essentially 200 gold a day. And think about how hard it is to get 200 gold just grinding regular Hearthstone. I don't think they're gonna be that generous with it, especially on a daily repeat. Now, I would love for them to prove me wrong in that respect. Like, if these did actually give packs
sometimes, right? Like, you can high roll it.
Think about how insane that would be. And this is another reason I think they won't do it. Is because imagine how many packs you could stockpile before a new drop with this.
Yeah.
Literally, if you get maxed out early on, you have like 3 months of stacking packs. Another, let's say you get what, 2
It's
packs
like
a day.
250-ish or
That's
something.
that's like 60 packs a month if you do it all, and that's just a ton of packs. And since they already give us a bunch of free ones, I don't see them being willing
And
to
activating
just
all the tasks all the time.
hand them out like candy. You know, like I would
Yeah.
love for to be proven wrong, but I don't think that's gonna happen here.
Yeah, for these visitors though, I don't think you have to have their task chains done for it. Does it say that?
No,
No.
my understanding of it is
They're
it's like
independent.
a side
Right,
task.
okay.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's like task
They're entirely
8, like
independent.
19
Oh,
essentially.
yeah. Cool. Okay, so yeah, hopefully it's good rewards.
Yeah,
I mean,
maybe one as a pack. I would love for that to be the case. Don't get me wrong. Like,
I'm pretty sure it's gonna be gold.
but yeah, it's gonna be
Yeah.
coins. It's gonna be
Or
coins.
coins,
Like I'm like very
basically
confident it's gonna be
refill them in
coins.
Renown system.
What if it was gold? Straight up Hearthstone gold, runestones.
I'd
Every
be cool with
Hearthstone
that,
player
yeah,
would be playing
Runestone.
Mercenary.
Yeah.
Hey, that's one way to do it.
That would be super free, honestly, and it would give an incentive. But again, there's no shot.
Even if it was 5 gold, 10 extra gold a day.
Yeah.
There's just like there's no way they'd be that
Yeah.
generous with it. I'd be absolutely shocked if that were the case. But it's nice we got this image. You know, it gives us, and you know, the bit of information we got. I think it's cool that we had this bit of time. The last however many hours before a coin exchange system. After all this time, so we have a little bit more information to speculate and give some thoughts on now that we have a bit more concrete information about what we should expect here. And it's funny because I've seen all different kinds of reactions to this. Like, I've seen people who are in kind of the camp we were in, where it's just like, this is way too small. I've seen other people who have been really, really happy about it. Like I've seen people in between where it's like, it's great this is coming, but you know, I was expecting something more. I don't know if this will be enough. So I've seen it all over the spectrum of reactions here, and I think we'll know within the first few days to a week where the community stands on this after actually getting to do it for a few days and seeing the impact it has. I think it will become very apparent if, hey, this is nice, I'm glad they added this, or hey, this feels kind of inconsequential. And I don't think it's going to be very in between. I think it's going to be one or the other. But maybe the task system change will help out with that, because I know obviously our focus is on the extra coin thing because that's the bigger change and whatnot, but I don't think we can really understate how big the task thing is for new and returning players. Like, that provides a lot of agency, and it also makes it so you can complete tasks faster. Like, I was already completing them fast as is. With 4 and a thing, now you can have all 6. That's really good. Like, this is, and they automatically get equipped when you have them in your party. So that means you don't just have to keep grinding the same ones out over and over again. If you get on a task that you don't feel like doing, you don't get punished for it because you aren't finishing it or re-rolling it. You just change to another task. You just go do another mercenary. Like, I know the extra coins thing is stealing the spotlight here, and rightfully so, but I do think the task change is actually a really, really good thing for the game, especially in the long term, because think about it, this helps us with new Merc launches. Like, I don't have much to complain about with the new launches because I wasn't even stranger farming. I stranger farmed on day 1 to get a few quests, and then I purely relied on my daily reroll because I didn't feel like farming strangers. I just get 4 a day, and I do them, and it was nice. But now I can but I was reliant on whatever 4 it gave me. Now it's like, if I want to choose my Pokemon and get that one level day 1, I have all the agency to do that, assuming I have the mercenary. So I think that is a very, very positive change for the mode.
Yeah, no, it's like, especially if you want to target a certain group, just like say like, hey, someone wants to do a lot of PvE, and you know, fire is great. What if they just, once they have all the fire, they just chuck them all in one party and just roll through all of their tasks instantly instead of having to go, like you said, stranger farming for that. Especially with how, I don't know, over 100 mercs. What are we at now?
114.
114? Yeah. So 114 mercs, you know, having all of those different tasks that can come up. Now you're just like, I'm just going to choose them. So and especially having 6, like for those ones where it's like, hey, complete 6 bounties or whatever, or all the heroics or the heroic damage, like all those ones where you can actually like do them all at once pretty easily. Having 2 extra mercs, you do that now twice with the 6, and that's a whole nother board of the mercs it would have been 12 versus 8.
Yeah.
So
No, I think it is
that's a huge change.
a very positive change. I think this is another one where it's like, you couldn't have done this 6 months ago. Like, you couldn't have done this a little bit longer ago. Like, I get it, things take time, and I would not be surprised if the Mercs team is kind of understaffed here. Or I mean, I think the bigger issue is just like the game needed more time in the oven. Like, if we got all of this on launch, I don't think we would be viewing some of it, especially the conversion stuff, as negatively as we are. I think this comes from the fact that we've had this issue for so long and it's been talked about for so long. Expectations are much higher than if they got the system out like within a month of launch when people were still, that was the main thing they were upset about. I think people would have been super happy. But when you take a year, I think the expectations and the bar gets raised quite a bit, and then it becomes hard to deliver on. Especially
they
with
definitely talked about how their expectations were so blown out of the water in terms of how quickly people maxed things. Like, it is kind of weirdly a system you can't release on day one, because like you look at it and you're like, wait, people are actually going to first of all, you can't even use it, right? If you couldn't get
maybe
Renown,
not day one, right? But that's
earlier. Interesting. Like, they almost had to wait. Yeah.
Like,
if they thought it was going to take people 6 months to max a reasonable amount of their collection, like,
but if they really thought that, I think that would show two issues, right? I think that would show one, that they expected people to be willing to grind this game for a way longer period of time than I think most Hearthstone players were even remotely comfortable grinding. And two, I think they expected people to be more caught up in the gameplay loop, which, frankly, in terms of roguelikes, leaves a ton to be desired. It's just like, I think you could pick like any roguelike out of a hat and probably have a better time doing its PvE content than most of Mercenaries. Because, like, don't get me wrong, I think the bosses in Mercenaries are quite cool, especially some of the recent ones. I think the bosses are awesome. They're the highlight of PvE. The problem is the bosses are like 10% of each run. Like you're doing all these boring, repetitive fights that really don't make you think a whole lot. Like, maybe some of the elite ones you have to think a little bit more, but you can avoid those entirely if you want. Yeah, and it's just like, you have to make those, if the regular encounters are going to be the bulk of your gameplay leading up to these bosses, you got to make the regular encounters fun. And, for a lot of players, they just aren't really that fun or interesting. There's something I will do when I don't have to pay attention to it. And when you're playing a game that you're actively not wanting to put your attention on, I think you have a problem there.
I agree.
We've talked about this a whole bunch, so we don't need to like go fully into the PvE stuff and how that needs to be improved. But I think this is just another example of, hey, if Mercs released, let's say, a year later, it had more time in the oven. If it came with these default task systems where it automatically rolled over, let's say this new task system where you got whatever you want, these new daily quests, and let's say like a month or 2 or 3 months in, they added this trade system, I think it would be met with almost universal praise, or at least a lot more praise than we're going to see as a result of them waiting so long and promising, hey, it's coming, hey, it's coming, hey, it's coming. You just are building people's expectations, because if it was so simple, if it was such a smaller thing, why did it take a year to happen? Well, if this is the elaborate thing they were spending all this time finding out the best way to do, I expected a bit more of it, Yeah. And I think we're not alone in that.
Yeah, I mean, I will say though, at least all of the changes that we have seen from Merc's launch, I think every single one though has been like positive. I will say that, like, all of the task changes that we've gotten, basically it's like they were leveling up every time to this point, and now we finally got, like we were talking about, kind of like Mullahoo said, like these are like the tasks like 19 and above kind of now that we got going with the new visitors, and we finally got
it's great changes.
All of them are positive. It's just not at the level we're expecting for a year.
Yeah, basically to me, this is we're almost at the point where this is what the game should have launched at, to me. Like that's the way I see it. Like if Mercs launched the way it's going to be in this patch at launch, I think there would have been a much more positive reception to the game. I think there would have been a bigger player base, and I think they really shot themselves in the foot with this mode and how long it's taken, basically effectively putting it out in almost early access and saying, hey, we can fix it up and finish it later. And, I don't really put the blame on the hands of the developers in this case, because there's honestly no doubt in my mind that the people responsible for making the game probably wanted more time to flesh it out. Mercs, we know it got delayed, I think, twice. And I think we just ran into a situation where the money-making people were like, hey, we need something to boost our results for this end of year. It's an important time. We know you want more time for this, but we need to make some more money. It's in a playable state. Put it out, and then we'll use some of that money to continue the development. Because right now it's just costing us money instead of making it. And from a business sense, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, do I agree with them doing that? Hell no. But unfortunately, in the world of big gaming corporations, that's oftentimes how a lot of this stuff goes. And the people making it aren't always the ones who have the say about, hey, this is the time for us to ship. They're kind of working with the dates that they're given, and sometimes that changes. And so I think it's unfortunate because I think we're actually getting into a pretty, the mode is starting to feel a lot more feature complete. It's by no means perfect. I mean, we'll probably end up doing a whole other episode in the near future about, the flaws with PvP and how we still haven't seen a whole ton of accessibility and all this other stuff we've talked about before, but we're going to save that for another time. I do want to talk a little bit about the meta, and then we're going to close it down with talking about another game that we have all been playing.
One last thing I do want to say about this.
Go for it.
Do we think nerfs will be coming now that we finally have
pay us back in Renown?
Yeah.
No, I don't think it's happening yet.
Not at all.
No,
I'm not saying like with this patch, but I'm saying in near future, do we think that
maybe? I'm firmly in the boat that eventually they're going to have to bite the bullet and admit that never nerfing anything or reworking things is a mistake, and it's not healthy for the overall life term of the game, especially in a format that doesn't have, and frankly, in my opinion, shouldn't have a rotation system. So I think eventually they're going to have to bite that bullet, but when they do that, I think your odds of guessing that are as good as mine. I have no idea. I do know that usually we see some buffs in these 0.6 patches, so I would not be surprised if we got some buffs to some launch mercs or underperforming characters, but I don't think we're getting nerfs this patch, and I really don't know if it's going to be anything, but I hope so.
Yeah, because that is the other thing too, as you were saying. In 0.6, we always see normally a lot of buffs.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't this I always forget, which is it 0.2 or 0.6 that we normally see a lot more equipment? I think it was 0.2, right, for equipment.
I think it's been in both. I don't think one has been hugely more than the other, but I do think 0.6 are usually the bigger ones in terms of buffs. I'd have to look at the actual patch history, but just off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure 0.6 are usually the bigger ones because they usually don't touch anything in 0.4 because we're getting new characters and things change, but usually we do see some changes in the 0.6 patches for Mercs buffs.
Okay, so that will be something also to look forward to.
What do you think, Mullahoo? Do you think we're any closer to the magical nerf bat?
I don't think you can necessarily pay people back in Renown.
Yeah, I don't think that works.
Nerfs, because ultimately that's what we were saying was gating the nerf ability was they can't give us a resource back, and at least so far, really, Renown only being this like daily system or for another system that's not even out yet. I think we probably won't even start seeing any talk about nerfs until after the PvE is done, because they're just they're not going to get it perfect and never release a merc that deserves to be nerfed. Again, obviously we would argue that there already have been some that should have been hit with nerfs, and it technically was fine. I guess
it's okay, but it's not kind great. It's better than it was. We've got Stockholm syndrome here. We've lived through some really bad metas, so I think we're a little biased. But I think basically what this Renown system says to me is if they are ever going to nerf or change characters in this game, they're not going to be refunding for it. This kind of cements that fact to me now that we've seen this. And they're just going to do what they did with Varden, where if they're going to nerf a character, they're just going to straight up rework it and say, you know what, if you don't like it, well, tough shit, we're doing it. Like, and I'm totally cool with it. Yep, I am A-okay, because we only have the one main example with Varden, but like they made it very clear they did not kill that character. I mean, Varden still has seen. I don't think Varden's ever been below B tier for the whole life of the game, and that was after the change for most of it. So like, I think if they do change a character, and I think this is honestly the way to do it now, rework it, don't refund anything, and just make them still playable. You know, we're not asking for any of these overpowered characters to get, you know, sent to the Shadow Realm and nuked down to launch Rexar's capabilities or launch Garrosh or one of the other one of the bad characters at launch. We're not asking for them to be sent all the way down there. We're just asking them to be not as ridiculous and, you know, format warping, which I don't think is too much. But yeah, good. I'm glad you brought that up because definitely slipped my mind there. But so speaking of meta stuff, probably a little just short section here, but I wanted to talk about my experience with the game. I know, honestly, all of us haven't been playing a whole ton recently, in part because of another game taking our time. But I know you, WizardBeast, you were waiting to see the coin exchange stuff, right? Like before you dedicate all this time to farming. Made a lot of sense. I'm sure a lot of other people are in that boat where they were like, you know what, it launched, but you know, a month later we're getting an exchange, so I don't really need to commit to super try hard farming if like I did, where now I'm not even going to get to use this Renown system because I have nothing to exchange for, right?
Yeah.
So I totally get why people are in that boat. But I've been playing, you know, a fair bit, been streaming a little bit, and I do think there are two main things that stand out to me. One, there are some really fucking fun comps with the new mercs. Like, Master Puppet shared a build with me that has become my favorite build in the game, and it's like kind of a classic Tyrion buff bench. So it goes Tyrion, Elise, Khadgar into Gen, Tess, Anduin, and it's so cool. So it's a humans build with big stats. But the awesome thing is, so you get your big stats going, and they almost always have to focus either Elise or Khadgar, because if you leave one of them alone, it starts snowballing out of control, and they can't usually kill both of them quickly. So whichever one they don't focus starts ramping really, really hard and doing a lot of work for you while they're spending all their damage trying to focus down the other one. And then Tyrion is kind of free to do a little bit of controlling, chip in some damage, lower attacks, and then buff up and protect your mercenary that they're not going after. But the real reason this comp is the most fun is because how it closes out the game. By the time you get Tess in at the end, her ability is either already transformed or it's like one-off. And let me tell you, that Tess transform ability is the coolest, most fun, and incredibly powerful. Like, it's just too fun. Like, I've already put up some clips with it. It's so cool. It's a better Yogg that it's more controlled randomness to a degree because the whole pool of abilities are only skills you've used that game. And also...
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It was true. Random abilities.
No.
This is like the cast 12 unique names ability.
Yeah, and get this. Another thing that's really interesting about this, the Elise skill 3s, because the monkey chain is unique, and because I imagine they don't want people randomly getting the monkey, those aren't in the pool. So your pool is actually smaller because of that, because with Elise, most of the time you're using those abilities, and your other abilities are usually Tyrion abilities, Khadgar abilities, which you can even get his upgraded abilities, which is nuts, because you can get his one that casts all the upgraded abilities just as one ability. And then like all the other mercs on your team are just good abilities. So it's like, it is crazy. Like I've had that totally swing the game around in the end. And you also have to remember Tess is coming in with huge stats because she has stats on her equipment, stats from Elise, stats from Tyrion dying. and she's changing color after every hit of damage with her equipment. It's like, and she's also healing with Gen because her things are even, and it's just, it is the most fun I have ever had, I think, in Mercenaries playing a comp. So big shout out to Master Puppet. He came up with that one. He put in the work finding that sweet Gen comp, and I'm just like, I don't know how I'm gonna find something I enjoy playing more than this. Like it is too fun, and Anduin actually serves a great role in there because if they focus your Khadgar, a lot of times Elise gets big enough and goes for the monkey, and then usually by the time you're about to monkey, one of your things dies. So you just throw an Anduin and Holy Nova them on 5 speed, and he's not even like a one trick because he cares about the healing from Gen. All your characters but Elise are humans, so it helps scale him up. And I even had a few games where his damage resistance for humans actually allowed my test to survive and win the game. Because 10 damage resistance, I mean, we've seen with Boggy how much 7 is. 10 damage resistance is a ton. Like, there's a reason that ability is a 2 cooldown. And we almost never saw it see play in the past, but it actually does some work in this comp. So I just love it. I've been playing a lot of that build, and I've even been throwing tests. And like I put her in a new version of Shadow that actually had quite a bit of success as well. I had a game where it was like 3v2. I had like a weak Yasharaj and a weak Tess, and I used the taunt on Yasharaj to get down his ultimate to do it the next turn. And so I ulted Yasharaj, my things go swinging in, Tess survives, she does her transformed ability, it summons a Kazakus Golem, and then it ults the Yasharaj ability again, so they get another 20 attack, and they all go in, and it wins the game, and I thought I was dead for sure, but because I went for that like one line, I ended up winning it, and it was just like, it was so much fun. So like, I have a video up on it. If you're looking for something fun to play, and it's actually relatively budget, because it's actually it's 1 rare, 4 epics, and 1 legendary with Anduin. It's my favorite comp. It's just too damn fun. So I have a video up on that for anyone who wants to check that out.
Yeah, I would say.
Well, I'm here for Anduin.
Yeah, the one comp I was playing a lot because I've been messing with Bwansandi was Bwansandi, Nemi, and Nemzi and Elise, and I would go
That's pretty sweet.
I'd go for monkey comp, and the thing I would love to do is with Nemzi, you can give Bwansandi taunt, so when he can't take damage against any attacking comp, you just like deny their turn, and turn 1 they can't attack anyways because of elite root most of the time. So, and even if it's against like Trigor comps, well, you can still most of the time get that off because you also have your Bog with taunt. So if it's like a Nefarian stuff, you have that 1 turn to still get that setup going. So you're not even worried about like aggro decks. And then what you do is you just go for turn 3, basically, because you just kind of keep rooting them and have your Bwansandi take the damage with the refresh equip. And then on turn 3, you lift everything up, you get your monkey, and then you just bring in Nemzi again. So then you get 2 Bogs. You have then your monkey, and then you do like Nazoth, and then I bring in Malkazar, and I'm forgetting the orc that summons imps.
Niru?
I'm forgetting it. Yeah. So you bring in all of those, and then you have 6 people on the field with a monkey. So when you have that with Nazoth damage, it's like a winning right there.
Oh, from the start of turn trigger?
Yep. So
That's
it's like
cool.
96 damage or something.
That's
It's ridiculous.
It's wild.
So yeah, I've actually had pretty good against that because I beat Frost with it, aggro, Old Gods, because you can just make it where because without attacking on 1, they don't get the swap in, and then on 2, you just basically hit the Nazoth, and then you can guarantee that when they have the big blow up, your Bwansandi taunts before that, so they all just go into Bwansandi, and then you're guaranteed the monkey.
Yeah, the Bwansandi targeting thing is awesome. It's kind of funny that we were so high on his speed one,
and it's not even usable.
Yeah, mainly because of the bug. We haven't seen it being used, so hopefully in this 0.6 patch they can get that fixed. I'm not holding my breath, but I'm really hoping, because that has been reported. But it's kind of funny that was the one we were the most hyped about, and the other 2 have been seeing way more play, in part because of the bug, but also in part just because they're really good. Like, being able to focus all the abilities and being able to bounce mercs, it's even better than I thought it would be, frankly. So I'm pretty impressed by that. One kind of last thing I want to mention before we talk about our last topic for the episode here. One thing that concerns me a little bit. So overall, I like the new mercs. I do think they've enabled some very cool comps. They've done something which I think is important, which has dethroned some of the past comps, like Old Gods and Old Shadow got significantly worse with this patch. They're still playable. They're not bad decks by any means, but they are no longer like above the rest. Like them, Nagas, like it felt like those were like our 3 or 4 like top decks, and everything else was a little bit below. And I think that all those decks actually got kind of hit by new mercs. Like Malkazar shuts down Shadow incredibly hard by stealing their attack and making Yashiraj not hit very hard. And so I think that was a huge success. The only thing that concerns me is I do think that we're starting to see some new combo decks come about, which isn't inherently a bad thing. I think combo decks serve a place in Mercenaries. However, the problem here is that I think some of these new combo decks that we're seeing, like the fast Golden Monkey, as well as the Mr. Smite combo, I think they're just very, very polarizing decks. They're not uncounterable by any means, so they'll never be tier S decks that you can't beat, right? The problem is that the matchup spreads feel so polarizing that if you're not playing one of the counters to these decks, it feels like you aren't really making many decisions because you just can't interact with them. And that's feeling like a classic Hearthstone problem of it's just not good when you lose just by entering the game because you queued Freeze Mage and they're on Control Warrior. It's very polarizing in how it feels, and I think that's a net negative for the game. I don't think that's... I think it's a complicated issue because, again, I think combo decks should exist, but I think that they need to be a bit more, not hard targetable, because they are hard targetable, and because then that encourages counter queuing, right? Which has already been a problem in the game. So I think the big issue here to me is just that maybe a few of these new mercenaries are a little overtuned. And this is why I dislike that they're so against nerfing or readjusting characters. Because I think, like, as much as I love this character, I'm pretty confident in saying that giving 7 damage reduction to Boggy was way too much.
Yeah,
like 7 is way too much. Yeah, I was thinking like
3?
4. Yeah. I was thinking 4 at like max, like because 4 has been a consistent thing with Cho, and then because you also have to factor in it stacks with Cho and whatnot. So it's like I think 7 was way too like,
especially on a rare.
Eyeballing it. Well, I don't think the rarity really matters. The problem would be the same either way, because rarity really hasn't mattered too much in Mercenaries. No. But
just like such a surprisingly high number to give.
I mean, she is easily like top 3, I think, of the new Mercenaries because of, and it's all off the back of her equipment. And it also kind of sucks because you're never going to see her other equipment see play because that one's just too busted. Like it goes into a variety of different comps. It's good in all those comps, and there's no reason to even consider the other items. So it's like, I think honestly, damage reduction is the strongest mechanic in the game, and 7 was just a bit too high of a number. There are a few other changes I like to see as well to past characters that we talked about before. I think Maestra also falls into that category for me now, where I don't think you need to hit her much, but I think if she's using that skill from coming in off the bench, it should go on cooldown. I don't think you should be able to use it back to back. I think it's just way too high damage output for free. But overall, I think that they definitely push the boundaries with these new mechanics and these new mercenaries, and I think that's great. But I think maybe they'd feel a little bit more free to do that if they could say, hey, yeah, we overtuned this a bit, we're going to scale it down a little bit. Rather than just leave it as is for eternity, because I guarantee you it's going to become more problematic in the future if left as is, like we've seen with other mercs in the past. But for now, I think the meta's overall good. It's just those polarizing matchups that can be problematic. Luckily, hasn't been too bad, because like I said, all those combo decks actually are pretty hard counterable. Frost actually rolls over a decent amount of them, but then that encourages a Frost meta and whatnot. So it's like,
Reliable.
yeah, reliable indeed. So I think there's some complex issues there. We'll probably dive into it more next time as things continue to develop. Still kind of early on. I mean, I did a meta report, looked at the data, and it still wasn't really clear. There was still a lot of just decks that I know that are probably high tier that weren't even showing up on the data. So I think we still have a while before we really see the full impact.
Which is, I think, is good,
Yeah, we don't want it to be solved too quickly, right? Like, we want time. We have 4 months between Merc drops. We don't want it all solved in a month. So
yeah,
that's good. It's good. And I've had, like, in the games that are not polarizing, I've had a lot of fun. And it can be fun to be the one doing the polarizing thing sometimes. I just know long term it's not going to be a good gameplay pattern. But yeah. So that's our last Mercs related thing. Wanted to squeeze in some Snap talk here at the end. Marvel Snap. So you've probably seen me talk about this a bit. If you don't know, I've been doing some stuff on a side YouTube channel where I do different gaming content, doing a bunch of shorts over there, been streaming it a bit, and all of us have actually been playing this game. So we wanted to talk about it a bit because, one, it's been eating up a lot of our time, and I think there are a lot of strategic things that overlap with Mercenaries, which are why we've been enjoying it. And two, I think there are a lot of things that this game does correctly that Mercenaries can learn from. So do you want to start it off, WizardBeast? Because I know you have to go in a little bit here.
Yeah, I would say things kind of compared to Mercenaries that I really liked in the gameplay is like the locations of like positions. So, like in Mercenaries, there's more positions oriented in a lot of decks now, but not just that, it's also kind of like the mind games that you have in Mercenaries, like knowing what your opponent might do, and then you might do this to counter it. So it's a lot of kind of like more strategical thinking in sense, because you're also playing it at the same time, just like in Mercenaries where you're doing the same turn versus in standard Hearthstone, how you're doing it. Oh, it's their
Back
turn,
and
then my
forth.
turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really like that on it. The main thing I would say is I think it's very free to play friendly. You can play the whole game and get a lot of the cards, not super fast because there's a lot of cards, especially even at release, but just through the battle pass system, even the free battle pass that they have gives you a lot of like the credits, which are like the main resources for upgrading cards, like the main money system that you kind of need to use, and it gives you a lot through that. There's 6 dailies a day that refresh also multiple times throughout a day, so it's 2 every 8 hours, which is kind of nice. It actually helps with scheduling for some people. Like, hey, maybe if you, instead of being available at like late at night, maybe you're midday, and it's like, hey, I'm going to squeeze in a couple of these quick dailies. So I really like that. And even just like having the weekly thing, you're just getting so much value as a free to play person. Like, it's kind of like how we said in Mercenaries, you don't really need to spend money on anything. It's only the cosmetics. Like, that's the main monetization in kind of both of the modes. That I would say is just the cosmetics, but very free to play friendly.
For sure. Yeah. I have a lot to say about this. I've been like hardcore addicted to this game. It has been my my card game thing for a while. And I don't fully consider Mercs like a card game. Like, it's more like Pokemon-y to me. But like in terms of just like slinging cards, like it's all I've been playing. And I was in the beta, so just to clarify a little bit, I was in the beta, so I played a bunch. I have a further collection, whereas Mullahoo and WizardBeast both are new players. So we have some little bit different perspectives, right? Because I got to see the game as it was evolving and changing, and they definitely made some mistakes in the beta, but they definitely rectified pretty much all of them. Also, really, I think refined a lot of balance stuff too. I'm actually very happy with the state of balance in the game right now. I really don't feel like there's there's one card that I've seen that really just feels like, oh, I hate that I'm playing against this all the time. Even where I'm at in Pool 3, which is cards you don't experience a little bit until a little bit later on as a new player. There's just been a lot of variety. It's been a lot of fun, and I haven't been able to put it down. I think one thing that it nails that I haven't seen another card game do successfully is the quick format of games. They go by in a snap. Like literally, the games are like 2 or 3 minutes. That's why I've been doing these shorts on YouTube, because I can edit a full game down to a minute and commentate over it, and you get the full game experience in 1 minute. And that's great because you can just, it also plays into how the locations in the game work, because the locations add a random element to where every game's a bit different. And so if you lose a game, not only can you retreat so you don't lose as much, so the RNG doesn't feel quite as bad when you do lose, but on top of that, it encourages better performance over time, and you can just move on to the next game. Like if I get super screwed by RNG, I'll just concede the game and move to the next one. And I don't even have time to focus on being salty about it because I'm already in another game by the time I'm even thinking about that. And there's a lot of merit to that. It's really kind of fascinating. Like when I think about Hearthstone in comparison to it, when you have a bad game or two back to back and you're just like, all right, I'm logging off for the night. Whereas this, I really don't have that problem. If anything, when I lose, especially when I've snapped and, we're playing at higher stakes for more of these cubes, which is how you rank up, I'm almost just like, oh man, that was a big loss, but it was kind of my fault. And now I want to play more to earn those back. And
you just hit play again.
Yeah, it's an addicting loop. And like WizardBeast said, incredibly free to play friendly. I would say this is right up there with Mercenaries, where you don't have to spend money on it. In fact, I think the only thing that is really worth spending money on is their season pass. But even if you don't buy that, you still get a bunch of good free stuff from it. So I'm very impressed with the business model. It definitely, they're focusing more on cosmetics and the season pass as their main methods of monetization, which I think is great. But the other thing it also nails, which I love, is the pool 1 cards. So the cards you get as a starter. Let's say in Hearthstone, your Boulder Fist Ogres, or your starter cards that they give everybody, your starter class cards, whatever. A lot of those cards are not bad cards and can actually be relevant way, way later on in the game, like where I'm at from playing in beta. And I think that's amazing. It's always sucked to me when you're starting out a new card game that they're like, yeah, we give you all these cards, but they're kind of crap, and that's kind of part of their model is you start out, you get a feel for the gameplay, and then you learn, oh, there are these way better cards, let me buy some packs so I can actually get those good cards, whereas in this game, there are no packs. I won't spend a whole lot of time breaking down the whole progression system, but there are no packs. You're not you don't have to spend money to progress and get new cards. Now you can, and it will speed it up a bit, but even that is actually time gated essentially. So even if someone wanted to spend $1,000 or $2,000 or something crazy, you would still be limited by time, just how fast you can progress that collection. So there really isn't an easy just swipe the credit card and get access to everything, which I'm sure not everybody is going to like. But I do think it's kind of good for the game because I think it encourages players to be around for the long term, and being excited to get that new card every day and progress their account. And I think that, and when dailies and weeklies are both completable so quickly, and they actually provide very meaningful progress for improving your account and your collection, I feel very compelled to do them, and I have a fun time doing them. And I don't feel like I'm being forced to do something I don't want to do, like when I log into Hearthstone and it asks me to play Demon Hunter or use my hero power 20 times. So I'm really impressed.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really cool, as you were saying, with the dailies and everything, because it's not targeted. A lot of it's general. You can do it with almost any deck.
Yeah, they improved a lot with that. It's way easier to complete. The dailies are so kind of simple and generic. Some of them are simply just draw cards, play 3-cost cards. Like it's very simple stuff almost any deck can do, whether you're a new player or been playing for a while.
Yeah, I mean, the other cool thing I was going to say is like all three of us are actually in different pools right now. Mullahoo's in pool number 1, I'm in 2, and Zombies is in 3. So we're all playing in like different, I guess you would say, like brackets with cards.
Yeah, like with different metas. So for the unaware, pools are a set number of cards depending on your collection level, which is how you get new cards by leveling that up. There are a set amount in each level, so that way, let's say WizardBeast and Mullahoo aren't playing against some of the cards I have access to as a beta player who's been playing for a couple months now. It kind of eases you into it gradually, and I think it's a pretty smart system, though there are still some flaws with it.
Yeah, it feels like playing... Like it feels like they released almost like a year's worth of cards, in the sense that like we would normally see like an entire block in Magic or in Hearthstone, where it's like, all right, here's 3 sets, they come out months apart. Now it's like the sets are pre-released and you have to level up to get to them, and that's a very different system. But I think it works great. Again, it takes this like match based on collection concept that Mercenaries kind of wanted to do, and we saw some issues with it, but it seems to work really well in Snap.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I'm very impressed with how far the game has come, because I think there were definitely more issues with it in the beta, and they've really dealt with pretty much almost all my major complaints. The only complaint I have left, and it's something they've actually talked about dealing with, is basically when you get into Pool 3, which will take a while. I mean, if you play the game a lot, you'll probably get into Pool 3 in like a week or 2, I think-ish. But when you get into Pool 3 is very large. There are a lot of cards in it. But the thing is, you can't target your card acquisition in this game. You're guaranteed to get something in that pool, but you could get anything in that pool. And Pool 3 is very large, and it takes a long time to actually get all the cards in. I've still got a long ways to go, and I've played quite a lot of the game. The problem is, if you want to play a specific deck, since the decks are very small in this game, key cards are very important and can be archetype defining. So it sucks if you want to play a deck with, let's say, Death or Wave or one of these other Pool 3 characters, and you have no idea whether you're going to get that character at the beginning when you just get into Pool 3, or if you're not going to get it till the end of Pool 3 a couple months later. They have addressed this, though, and this was by far the biggest piece of feedback they got in the beta, and definitely the biggest piece of feedback they got from me. And they have announced they are implementing a system called Collector Tokens that will help provide targeted acquisition. So you will basically have a new addition to the store. You'll get these just by progressing your account, and there will be a section of 3 or 6 cards you can get, and you can choose to spend your token on that and get a card from that pool. So they are adding some agency to that, which I will think fix what I think is probably the most glaring flaw about the game and the pool system. Most players aren't going to have to deal with that until they get into Pool 3. So I'm hoping that this is something they can kind of get out there around when new players get to that point in like another week or 2 weeks or however long it takes to get there.
I think it's going to take a lot longer on average than like a week or 2 to hit to Pool 3. It's a high-ass level.
Because I just hit Pool 2 yesterday, and I've been playing a decent amount. I've done every daily so far. And,
interesting.
I just hit Pool 2 from 1 week.
That was like a week or so.
I guess I'm speaking as a minority player here. So I made an alt to do some content. I'm almost collection 300 on the alt.
Jesus.
Yeah.
What level is Pool 3?
Pool 3 is 222.
222?
Oh, all right. That's not actually...
No, that's Pool 2. That's Pool 2.
That's Pool 2.
Yeah.
No, Pool 3 is 4...
Yeah.
Pool 3 is
450 or something.
86.
Let me check.
Yeah.
486.
Let me log in real quick. Okay, I'm actually at 305 right now.
Yeah, so that's what I thought.
So?
You're a little bit ahead of where I am on my alt. And so you basically have like another 170 to go. That will probably take like another 2 weeks at least or something, I'd imagine.
Probably.
So call it a month for like a regular player.
Yeah, like at least a month if you're logging in, doing most of your dailies, and most importantly, the weekly. Like if you can do the weeklies, they really do help progress a lot. And they really don't take much time, which is a big plus, but I've really been enjoying the game, and so I really hope that they can get that system implemented in time for new players to get to Pool 3, because I think that, I mean, it's been such a common complaint with the beta players that I think we're going to see the same complaint when new players get to that point, because that's when getting cards starts to slow down a bit. Right in the beginning, you know, they're feeding you so many, you get used to that, and then it starts slowing down, and then the lack of agency compounds on that, where like you can feel unlucky if you're not getting cards for the decks you want to play, or you have most of the cards, but you're still missing one key card, so it's like you're playing a much worse version, and it can lead to some feel bad moments. But that's really the only major complaint I have with the game in terms of actual gameplay. I've been loving it. I've really, it's been hard to put down, and it's single-handedly ruined my sleep schedule for the last week. So, big recommend from, I think, all of us here. If you're looking for something to scratch that card game itch and doesn't demand really any money from you up front, and also beautiful game on mobile.
It looks super cool. The cosmetics, again, like are what Mercenaries kind of wanted their cosmetic system to be. Every single card in Snap basically has like what? If you call each kind of, you basically like add degrees of foil to your cards, I would say, as like the shorthand version of like how you level up.
And you don't even have to pay for
cosmetics
that.
in this game.
That's part of the
But
leveling.
they go like, but there's like multiple different card arts that are essentially skins themselves that can all get various degrees of fancy and foilier, and that's how you kind of progress your collection. But it's
And the cool thing is
the
you can
cosmetics are
target it too.
wicked cool looking. Yeah,
because like with this cosmetics,
and
it's
you can pick.
basically-
Yeah,
you basically, it's the deck you're playing. You're gonna earn for that cards in that deck. So it's the 12 card deck, which that's pretty good odds for earning cards of what you want to get. Especially like, hey, if I love this deck and this is my main deck, of course I want to have all the cool, fancy looking cards for this. So
100%.
that's just like another thing. And the cool thing is because they can kind of like keep on leveling. Like once you like max a card on its cosmetic, it'll give you another card art like background for it. And you'll start off back with that one as another copy at like level 0. So you can just level that one back
basically
up, which then
infinite.
is
Yeah,
which is
you can just
your
keep
connection.
going on and on.
So you can literally, just like play like one deck if you really wanted to, and just have like the fanciest of cards and just rank all the way up. So.
And the location system really helps a lot with that, because even if you are someone who just loves grinding 1 or 2 decks, the locations change the gameplay enough to where it doesn't feel like the same game every time. Like I think it's a problem we've seen in Hearthstone where it's like the plays end up feeling really telegraphed, and you end up going for the same plan every time. And there are general game plans with these different decks, but like you have to adapt your game plan on the fly with the location system, and that adds so much interest and depth to decision making. And they're adding new locations every week, so that's getting even more complex and more things to play around and different gameplay patterns. It's just really a remarkably well done system. If I forgot to mention this in the beginning, but this is actually done by Ben Brode's new studio, so not surprising that one of the original minds behind Hearthstone came up with a very snappy and enjoyable mobile card game. But it's been very impressive, and I think right now there's a lot of buzz in the gaming news cycle about it, and rightfully so, especially among Hearthstone players. Like everybody I know, for the most part, who's a Hearthstone player has been playing and loving this game. So I definitely recommend checking it out if you have not already. It's a great experience. They do have a PC client. The PC client is in like early beta, so it's basically just like throwing the phone version up on a big screen. There definitely is a lot of work to be done there, but it is certainly playable, so you can play it on PC. But if you have mobile or what I've been doing, tablet, I think that's definitely the optimal way to go.
I gotta get going. So the last thing I'm gonna say is, I definitely recommend it. Give it a try. It's a lot of fun to play. Great free to play game. They also, like we were saying, it's great to play on like tablet and phone, especially with the cards. How some of them, when you upgrade them, turn into 3D. So it works really well with the phone because you can move it, unlike the computer.
Yeah, it's sick. The parallax effects.
Yeah, so I think just especially like the art in this game is amazing. But I recommend it, and I recommend everyone give it a try.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. It's pretty much most of what I want from like a card game experience, and the other cool thing, it's so different. It doesn't feel like I'm just playing a new version of Magic or a new version of Hearthstone. It feels distinctly different. It sets itself apart from the rest of the genre, And I think that's really the strength being leveraged pretty well. Like, I think it makes a lot of sense for the game. And I think that's part of why even people who aren't really card game players seem to be enjoying it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna say we could let WizardBeast go, and I can give my little like spiel and thoughts on it, but then we'll probably close out anyways. So goodbye, WizardBeast. Thanks for hanging out,
everyone.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we don't want to talk necessarily too much about Snap, but yeah, in terms of my experience I only started playing a couple days ago, and so I'm in pool 1, but yeah, the things that I truly cannot commend enough about this game are that it feels like an awesome combination of kind of like some of the best parts of Battlegrounds, some of the best parts of Magic, some of like the best parts of poker, some of the best parts of
poker.
I know people compare like backgammon and stuff. I want to seed this into the minds and brains of everyone that's listening to this, because I think when it comes to casting this game, casting Snap like on a competitive level eventually, because you know that there's going to be an esports scene for it, which will be cool because they could do like backgammon style, like sets are best of 3, but like or to a certain number of cubes, and like that makes a really interesting competitive format and like 1v1s. But
and they're going to have
like
a specific mode
turn in a river.
For for competitive that's in the works.
Please give a tournament client. Holy moly, put a tournament client in this game. Again, for a modern card game to do this, like again, Arena kind of did it, but give me a real tournament client in this game would be so awesome. But yeah, like there's a turn in a river basically from poker, where there's like you flip over a location and you flip over another location, you flip over another location. Like this was actually something that I was literally working on for something else, where it's like, how do you introduce one of the most fundamentally powerful elements of poker, which is like things change every turn, but for both players at the same time, and there's not that many of them. But all of the combat, all of the complexity comes into this like blitz Hearthstone, like arithmetic PvP. Like it's really, if there's a broken card, you can literally just go to another square. You have to win a best of 3 of these locations. Like it balances itself in such an interesting way that allows the weird collections to be not a problem, that allows literally every single game to be different, that allows you to have your deck and rewards you for knowing how to play your deck on a number of different combinations of locations. And so it's really not so much about matchup, but about mastery of your deck, which is something that, again, Mercenaries kind of wanted to be, where it was like, your deck really well, you can play against anything and you see what happens. But Snap just has that extra level of complexity while simultaneously having an extra level of simplicity that just makes it so good. It literally nails so many qualities exactly on the head, with a great place, like actual kind of play pattern system to it. Again, really, like we said, super free to play friendly. Deck building and kind of card evaluation is at an all-time high. I mean, it truly rewards like my skill set, I would say, is like free to play, deck building, tweaking cards, and just like being able to get in people's heads and figure out what is going to happen. This game is so good for it. Yeah, I truly cannot recommend it more highly to anybody that has played Magic, Battlegrounds, Hearthstone, Mercenaries, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon. Should be checking out Marvel Snap.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I do want to talk a little bit about like the cubes and the poker stuff, since you mentioned the terms there. I love poker. I am a big fan of
poker's goated.
Texas Hold'em. That's my jam. But I don't really play it very much. I just don't have many opportunities, and I don't exactly have the funds to throw around on random ass gambling, because gambling does not make most people the money. Kind of surprising fact there. But so the thing I love about this game is, and this goes into what I was saying before, is with the retreat system, sometimes you get screwed by some RNG or location not going your way. But with how the cubes work and snapping works is, you get to choose whether you want to bow out of that game before it becomes a bigger loss, or whether you want to double down and fight for more cubes. And then your opponent can double down too if they think their chance is high, and then at the end of the game, that last turn, it doubles automatically. So you can go from fighting from 1 cube for a game all the way to fighting for 8. And when it takes 10 cubes to rank up a level, you can basically almost get a full rank in 1 win if you play it right and you're smart about it and you go in correctly, and you can kind of bait the opponent. And I think that is
that bluffing
so fun.
concept in that way.
Bluffing's a huge part of it too. And that's what's cool about it, because like let's say you have a pretty commanding lead, and your opponent has snapped, and maybe you snap back right before the game ends. They might just be like, oh, I don't really know if I want to risk that much if they're confident, and they can just leave, and you'll still get the double from them snapping. So when they snap, it goes from 1 to 2. Then if you snap, it goes from 2 to 4. But then when that last turn ends, whatever that number is, 1, 2, or 4, it gets doubled.
Yeah.
So that's basically how the cube system works, and that's how you're ranking up. And there are no rank floors in this game, so you every game matters. You don't want to lose cubes because you can fall back down the ladder. Their ranked rewards are also very nice. I think they do have some pretty great ranked rewards, especially at the higher ranks. And for me, that's been a huge encouragement for climbing. I haven't felt that way in Hearthstone in a long time. Like, yeah, we get packs, and is it just packs for Hearthstone rewards? Do they still give cards? I honestly... I think it's just packs, right? Or they give they give rares and like an epic or something.
Yeah, there's like some random like non-disenchantable like cards. Or whatever,
I think they're disenchantable, but it's just not worth very much. They're just like regular rares, and I think if you get legend, you get an epic and an extra pack.
Oh, just like for what your rank rewards are.
Yeah, ranked rewards.
Yeah, they definitely throw real cards at you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just what I like about Snap is I feel like I'm actually getting stuff to help build my collection, whereas as someone who has, not every card in Hearthstone, but all the ones I need to play pretty much any deck I want to play, I'm not really playing the Legend for the rewards, the rewards don't really mean anything to me. And maybe we'll hit a point in Marvel Snap where I feel that way, but I don't think we will, because it seems like they have plans for adding cards more rapidly over time. And just how long it takes to finish that first pool 3 when we already know that apparently pool 4 and pool 5 are in development. And so it sounds like they're just going to have this great content pipeline, and it's kind of great because I think it's going to prevent a lot of the issue we see with card games where, like we're seeing in Hearthstone now, where things kind of stagnate and you're either waiting for a balance patch or new content. And don't get me wrong, in the beta, there were times we were waiting for balance patches. There were things that were broken and dominant, so I'm not saying that's never going to happen in this game. It certainly could. But I have been impressed with how they have responded. I think pretty much the vast majority of their balance changes have been positive to the game. They haven't nuked any cards, really, for the most part. Most of the cards they've nerfed are still very powerful, playable cards, which I think is a great thing, because when you only have like 140 total cards in the game, it's like Mercenaries. You want as many of them to be viable as you can,
truly,
right?
The numbers to compare to Mercenaries right now are pretty hilariously on the nose. Like, there was a multiple sets, and they're adding up to about around 100. It's kind of what Mercenaries wanted to be in many, many, many ways.
Yeah, I think Mercenaries can learn a lot of lessons from this game, particularly, and this is probably why you mentioned Battlegrounds, is because it's so easy you open up the app and you slam that play button. It doesn't matter if you're brand new. It doesn't matter if you've been playing for a bit. It doesn't matter if you've been playing for a couple months. You can just grab your deck and play. And there's you're not grinding out, like getting your characters ready to go. There's
no PvE beforehand. Like, no. I mean, that is ultimately what dealt a degree of a death blow to so many players' Mercenaries experience. And, Snap, you can just play PvP to get your PvP rewards. Like, any type of gameplay loop that deviates from that is hard to overcome for many players, especially when it requires any amount of significant time. And Snap instead doubles down in that way by saying, no, not only can you just rip it off right away, but the games are like 2 minutes long. But Battlegrounds suffers from you can just play and it's great and it's different every time, but the games are like a half an hour long if you win. And this just completely blows away that expectation, but with that, every single game is a new game, and you just have to respond to what's happening.
And the cool thing is, and this is where the whole thing with the poker element comes in, is there's RNG and whatnot, but by being smart about when you snap and smart about when you retreat, that is going to even out over time. And if you make those smart decisions, you will climb, you will advance. You will learn from those losses and mistakes if you're really trying to. And I think that's what feels so rewarding to me is it takes the emphasis off of the RNG being the deciding factor in the game and makes it more about, learning, making the right decisions, improving as a player, and averaging better, which that's such a poker thing, right? Like,
that's such a good point.
In poker, you're not trying to, always win the best hand. A big part of it is about knowing when to hold them and when to fold them. And this game nails that. It absolutely nails that. And I think that's what's so addicting about it, because even when you have a bad beat, you're like, all right, well, I want to run it back so I can get that cube back. Or if I had a big loss for 4 cubes or 8 cubes, I want to learn something from that loss. Like, oh, I lost because I thought this was going to happen, and then that happened. Well, now I know that for next time, so I know, hey, maybe I shouldn't snap in this position. Or, hey, maybe I should play this a little bit differently if I'm in that same scenario. And even as somebody who's been playing for a while, there's so much constant learning. And the combination of how the 3 lanes are different all the time, and the amount of combinations between them, especially when they're adding a new location like every week, it's only going to get bigger and bigger. Yeah. And like they've already, I think, said they have like a stockpile of like 50 of them or something. Like they have a bunch, kind of like we suspect with Mercenaries, where they have a bunch in this vault that they're kind of like waiting to throw out. But instead of doing it the Mercenaries way and dropping a large amount of them every 4 months, they're dropping one every week, kind of like we saw early on where they were dropping, a few Mercenaries every month. And though that system had a lot of problems, mainly to do with the whole PvE element and the time it took for grinding and stuff, Snap doesn't have any of those problems. It is unapologetically a PvP-focused game, and I'm not saying that's what Mercs needs to be, but when you're trying to sell Mercenaries to the Hearthstone audience, who is traditionally a PvP-focused audience, it's fine if you have PvE be a big part of it, but you really shouldn't be gating the entirety of PvP, which is what your core game is about, behind an experience that not everyone is interested in.
Yeah, and especially when newer games like Snap are going to literally offer you this alternative where it's like, now you can just play right now. Like you can just do the thing you want, but immediately. Like such a modern, like 21st century way of doing it and being outcompeted. But yeah, like it feels like so many of Mercenaries kind of decisions and directions almost feel antiquated in a modern gaming space because you have games like Snap, where they are just, it's all PvP. It's all, this is an entire company, right? Like literally like small indie company in that sense, but so much bigger than what the Mercenaries team was, despite being under a smaller umbrella than Blizzard is. But just, it's this, games like this are going to start to compete with any game that isn't just kind of giving you what you want right away. And it's a borderline terrifying concept. And I think in that sense, like you said, like Snap's dangerous, like semi-predatory play pattern is the fact that you want to run it back. Like that is definitely the worst part of it. And it's so easy to do. And you get into that poker, like gambly, like, oh, okay, just like that was a bad beat, but like I'll just one more again.
Yep.
You can concede, right? And thankfully, instead of just getting destroyed. But yeah, games in Snap are just so much less about how far does someone deviate from their nut draw, which is basically what Hearthstone Standard is. Like when you would play Standard competitively, most of your games would basically come down to how high rolly did my draw get and how high rolly did my opponent's draw get.
Did
and
they get the nuts or did I?
The responses.
Like,
But and like there was obviously a lot of nuance to it in the sense that like the skill came from being able to recognize,
like working with
my
what you
opponent's
had,
draw
right?
is a 7 out of 10 right now. On this board state with this matchup on this turn, they should be doing this. When they don't, now you adjust your course, right? And that was a really fun part about Hearthstone. Like and that was great. And that there were tons of skill in that, but it was still about how close to a 10 out of 10 did the game go for you. And Snap is so much more about like how well did you play the game, and could you get in your opponent's head, right? Like could you, because you're just bluffing and you're juking and you're just skipping entire win conditions, like you're just suddenly moving cards away from something that your opponent thought at the very last second. Again, the snaps get crazy. So yeah, it just really solves and attacks and addresses so many problems that so many other card games have been plagued with. And in a super modern space, in a really well designed, like top down, and the IP of Marvel is one of the only things that could probably have battled against the Blizzard IP size. Like Mercenaries is great because you have all these iconic characters. Like,
Yep.
so does Marvel. Like Marvel has arguably a grander space of characters to pull from, so they can go forever.
There's no
and
arguable about it, right? Like it's
run
just like they're very smart, because the cool thing about this game is Marvel has a bunch of mobile games that I know nothing about, but
Right.
they have small games that have been way, way worse than this, that have had a bunch of financial success purely off the back of that IP.
Yeah.
So the fact that they have a very good game on top of a very strong IP is a mean combination, because if you don't care about Marvel, you don't have to care about Marvel to play this game. Like you really don't.
I could not name 1/10 of the characters that I see, and I could not care less. But again, I've also been the type of player who, like, I would have played League if it was just gray blobs for every character, right? Like that's the type of player that I was, because the fundamentals of the game, the system of the game, the PvP, the entire ecosystem of it, and the evolution of the combat is what drives me to find games enjoyable. And so I'm not here for the cosmetics, and the cosmetics are great. I'm not here for the IP, and the IP is vast and interesting. Like, I shouldn't even be someone that is popping off as hard. I'm purely taking it from the gameplay itself, and it's very good.
Yeah, that's what's so cool about it. And I think this reminds me of when I first started playing Hearthstone, where I know a lot of Hearthstone players have some World of Warcraft background. I had none of that.
Yeah.
I was a RuneScape gamer. So I didn't play any World of Warcraft, but I fell in love with the gameplay of Hearthstone first, and I ended up liking it so much. I ended up reading and watching all these videos and stuff like that, learning the Warcraft lore, because I was like, I want to know more about these cool fucking characters like Ragnaros that I'm beating people down with. Like what's the reason he's saying what he's saying, or I want to know where all this stuff comes from. And I think that is a great combination for this IP, because I think they're going to get people who are card gamers who pick it up not knowing or not caring about Marvel stuff, and are like, hey, who is Black Cat, or who is maybe one of the more obscure ones like Onslaught, because they have some very obscure characters in here. Like you said, Marvel has such a crazy roster of things to pull from, given how long they've been in the comic business. They're not afraid to use some really like not known characters who aren't in their cinematic universe or whatever. It's like it's great, and it's also strong because they're tying stuff in with the very successful Marvel cinematic stuff, which, whether you like it or not, there's no denying that has become the dominant force of popular culture and movies for like a long time. Even if maybe some people, myself included, think it's a little oversaturated or a little overdone or whatever, you're getting a little fatigue from it. But there's no denying how smart it is, and they're tying in their season pass stuff with relevant things. Like next month, I think it's the new Black Panther movie. Well, it's going to be a Black Panther season pass with a new card. And so it's like, it's very, very smart how they're, cross-contaminating with this marketing. And I think it's gonna bring in a bunch of people who didn't know or didn't like card games, who have fun with it. And I think it's going to bring in a bunch of people who didn't know or didn't care for Marvel, but just want to play the card game. And so it's a pretty big win.
I think I saw something that said it was like in the first week of Marvel Snap's release, I think it netted 2 million.
Yeah, I saw that.
Like, that's crazy. Again, for a game where you're not even really incentivized to spend that much money on it. Like, I, at no real point yet, and I've been playing again literally only for like a couple days, but I've played a good amount, like a lot, I would say. I'm not gonna, I'm gonna do it the way that I always do it, basically, which is like, what happens when you have nothing? What can you do? But it almost makes it kind of hard pressed for you to spend money on the game, because
kind of like Mercs in that way, right? Like, not exactly, because obviously you can spend money in Mercs to speed up your collection, and you can do that in Marvel Snap, but there's like a pretty hard cap on how much you can do that. But what I think is cool about it is like, it is like Mercs in the way where you like that's kind of like a prerequisite if I'm trying out another card game at this point. I like cosmetics. I'm not afraid to admit that I spend a decent amount of money on cosmetics. It's just it's a fact. Like I'm one of the people that falls into that group. I like shiny things. Sometimes I wish I didn't. And anyone who's seen the Mercenaries gameplay knows that because I have all those skins. But I haven't spent any money on Hearthstone in like over a month, and I decided to put some of that money into Snap, and not for progression, because they had some cool fucking skins I liked.
Yeah, and the skins are like very different, I would say, like in terms of the actual kind of
yes, that's one thing I
equity
love
that they occupy too. Like it's a lot in terms of when you want to get like min-maxy about it in that sense.
Well, for me,
like,
it's the art
they're
style.
They're flashy, they're cool. Yeah, great styles.
Art
like,
is subjective, right? Like you're never gonna have one piece of art everyone agrees on as appealing. But so many of the cards have different art styles that feels like there's something kind of for everybody. And one thing I really love about this, and it's kind of a complaint I have in Mercenaries, is the default skins are good looking. Like, and you can make them look cool without spending money too, and make them look cooler. Yeah. Whereas in Mercs, if you're not spending any money and you don't get lucky with some skins and packs, like you're just having the base mercenary, which is fine. But like when you see people with these cool golden animations and diamond cards and shit, and you're like, I kind of want that, but I don't want to pony up like an insane amount of money for it. Like, I think that's something they also get right, where even if you're not someone who does want to spend money on cosmetics, you can still have cool looking stuff, which I think is a great way to encourage people to keep playing the game, because you can still make your stuff cooler. You can even grind out skins, even though there's a random element to it. You can grind out skins that a bunch of other people have probably paid money for, while still being full free to play. So
it opens cards when you get cosmetics. Basically, you basically acquire cards by getting your cool cosmetics. Like that loop doesn't exist in any other game. Like it's just
very unique.
It's very well done.
But yeah, so those are kind of our thoughts. I know not mercenary stuff here, but I think this stuff is important to talk about. Like, because there is so much that can be learned
really like Snap
from this game, and it does so many things I would like to see Mercenaries do better. And it's just also just straight up competition, you know. I'm not saying this is going to be the Hearthstone killer. I'm not saying, you know, Blizzard's better watch out, Ben Bro's new company's coming for him. I mean, I think in terms of like the amount of revenue they're making, like even though what they're making this first week is impressive, with that 2 million statistic, it's probably still in a drop in the bucket compared to what Hearthstone's making, even though the game isn't in the best state right now, in my opinion. Like the game makes silly amounts of money. But I think that's aside from the point. Like, I think the point to me is really about like what they're doing right with the gameplay, and why I've felt way more compelled this past week to be playing this as my main strategic game. Like it's just it, and that's coming from someone who, you know, loves Mercenaries, still enjoys playing it, is enjoying the new drop, but like I'd be lying if I said that I was more compelled to play with these new Mercs characters right now than I have been doing the Snap stuff. It's just been very, very enjoyable. And I think also an element of that is now that it's public and out of beta, getting to share that with people and talk about it and whatnot has definitely improved my interest in making these YouTube shorts and all that stuff. It's just been more fun to share it with people, whereas in the beta, there were only so many people in it.
Yeah, no one was really consuming content on it in that same way. Like, I didn't even really know. I didn't know that you kept your collection if you were stayed in beta. Like, I didn't really see any content creators doing anything for it. Like,
yeah, there were some, but now some of them are blowing up more because now it's the general public. Before, your audience was very limited. Like, before I got into the beta, I was amped up on this game. I was so excited for it. I literally had to stop watching it because every time I watched someone play it, it made me want to play it, and I couldn't play it, and I got frustrated. So
yeah, right.
And I'm sure a lot of other people were in that boat. And then I got into the beta, and I played it on and off, and I started back up again like a week before launch because I saw some changes I liked, and it's been a great time ever since. So hope this provided some interesting information. I know normally we don't, you know, talk too much in depth about other games, but I felt like this was kind of an important one to talk about in terms of just kind of the card game scene in terms of, some things Mercenaries can learn some, I think, strong and successful lessons from, especially in the wake of finally getting a change we've been wanting for a year and having it not exactly be what we were hoping for, right?
Yep.
Like, I think there's just so many. Unfortunately, there are still a lot of lessons to be learned, and we talked about it before that the two things that really feel like they're going to make or break this mode are how they handle Exis coins and the PvE endgame system.
Mm-hmm.
And so far,
they've kind of whiffed.
Yeah, they're whiffing a bit here.
And the PvE, I mean, how good does it have to be to?
Yeah,
you still need a way to be able to just hit play, and you kind of don't, and it seems tough to be able to implement that.
Yeah, and even if the PvE endgame is a big hit, like you said, you have to work to get there, right? Like their whole point of that is being an end game when you have most of the mercs done and all that. Well, if you aren't improving your core gameplay, a lot of people are never going to make it there. So you could make it the coolest end game ever, but if you're still throwing
the Blizzard story,
if you're still throwing on that early game experience, not a lot of people are going to get to experience it, because they're going to quit or get burnt out or get bored before they get to that point. So my hope is that this is a starting point, right? And this isn't what I wanted to have to say. Like, we even talked about this. Like, it's not a good look to not to finally deliver on this and not have it be the thing everyone's been hoping for. I hope that we can see some improvement with it if the system works how we currently understand it to. Obviously, we'll get the full details next week with the patch, and I'm sure we'll be talking about this more then, because we'll actually know everything about it, so we can give a super informed and accurate take rather than just kind of go off the bit of information we have here. But I do think there are some very slight changes they could make to this system to make it much more of a win for the player base and the experience overall. So we're just going to cross our fingers and hope we can see some improvement with it over time, because in the current state, definitely seems like it leaves a fair bit to be desired, even though the task changes and the daily challenge stuff are very welcome and positive additions to the game.
Yeah, we take those.
Yeah, I think that's going to wrap it up here for this episode of the Fighting Pit Podcast. We want to thank you so much for taking your time to hang out with us today. If you enjoyed it, remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that good social media stuff. And we will catch you in the next one. Take it easy, everybody.
Stay safe.